Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay.
You have some fans here tonight.
What's that? Hello,
I
everybody.
suspect you're used to that. Well, Robin, we're so excited to have you, and this is such a treat for book clubs and for all the readers around the world joining. And I say around the world because I noticed a comment this week. Somebody said, "I'm in Denmark, but I'm going to set my alarm to join."
Oh, I love that. Hold on. I'm just adjusting my volume.
I think we have an international crew tonight. So I thought before we dive into the burning questions, and there are burning questions, I would just give some quick introductions. So hi, everyone. I'm Nancy. I'm one of the co-founders of Book Clubs. If you're new here being Book Clubs, we are a web and mobile app for book club management. We help book clubs get organized so that they stay together. We're serving close to 30,000 book clubs on our platform. And we have the privilege every month of recommending reading. And this month, February, our romance pick was Robinne's The Idea of You. And it has been so fun to promote this book, not only because I got to read it, but just to see the fandom around it. My goodness. So before we get there, I want to, if it's okay with you, Robin, give a quick introduction to everyone, though I suspect you don't need one. But here we go. Robinne Lee is a writer, actor, and producer, a graduate of Yale University and Columbia Law School. Robinne was born and raised in Westchester County, New York. Robinne is the daughter of Jamaican parents of African, Chinese, and British descent, and has long had an affinity for travel and the arts, which certainly shines through in this novel. Robinne has numerous acting credits in both television and film. You may recognize Robinne from playing opposite Will Smith in Hitch and 7 Pounds. Robinne's debut novel, The Idea of You, was published in 2017, which is incredible. It's 2021 and it still has the buzz and excitement of a debut novel. And it's safe to say it has a cult-like following. Vogue magazine recently dubbed it the sleeper hit of the pandemic, citing it as electric and triumphant to read. And Robinne also narrates the audiobook, which, okay, so let's start there.
Okay.
I finished this book in less than 24 hours, and I wrote Robinne and I said, "Robinne, I have a book hangover." And I loved your response. You said, I've gotten that before.
You're not the first then.
Yeah, I did a duel, which I haven't done before, but I kind of like it. So I listened to it and I also read it.
Oh, you
did? So
you did both?
Yes. The audio, I mean, before this interview is over, Robin, I might have to ask you to do a Hayes Campbell.
I do a Hayes Campbell.
But anyways,
yes. Okay.
So it was rapturing, the book, very much so. And one place I wanted to start tonight, so I've got a few questions lined up, as you know, and then we've got some comments from readers have been sending in some questions throughout the week, so we'll get to those. But one of the central ideas in this book is fame, what it means to idolize and be idolized. And I think it's a really complex idea, and that was really evidenced through this novel. But I have to wonder, when you were writing this, did you ever anticipate that the idea of you would have the level of fame and fandom that you set out to capture in this story? And it's 2021, and I would love to hear, what has your experience been with this? What is your experience in relationship now to the novel?
You know, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. It's really been an interesting ride. I wrote this book for myself, which is, I think, what a lot of younger writers, not physically younger, but writers who haven't been published, whatever, they're not. I wasn't writing thinking, okay, how's this going to market? I just kind of wanted to write something for me about getting older and how I felt I was being objectified, I guess, by the industry. Like I've been working as an actress now for well over 25 years, and it was interesting to see like how your roles change when you start approaching 40, and how
Right.
look at you. And it was the idea that I was running out of time. Like, what if I'm no longer sexy? What if I'm no longer desirable? And why is that? And why do we think that women stop being desirable at 40? Like, who came up with that number? Who came up with these rules? And like, and why do we write each other off at that time? Like, I feel like it's just the age when we're all coming into our own power. A lot of us, you know, those have taken time, either we've had kids or returning to the workforce, or you've gone to school and you've got your education, whatever you're building up. Like, that's just kind of when you're hitting your stride and like coming into your power. And for the media and for our culture in general, and it's American culture, because different countries, you know, respond to say like, well, this is when you stop being desirable, attractive, sexy, you know, like just when you're hitting your power. It was really difficult for me, and I wanted to kind of like explore that and think about it and why we feel that way. So when I was writing this book, and I knew I was going to work in this love story, and there were going to be sexy elements, but I also wanted to be very real. And I don't know who I thought would really like it and how big it would be. I thought it's got to appeal to other women turning 40. And then as more I wrote, the more I thought, okay, 35 to 45. Okay, 35 to. I kept like expanding those margins, because more I would, you know, I would let friends read it. I'm in a writers group, and it's an alumni women writers group. So it's Yale Writers Group of Los Angeles. And we range from like mid-20s to mid-70s. So I had other older women and younger women like reading and giving me feedback, and like how they responded to it, and how much I really hit something on the head. Because I really kind of thought, I think when you're young and you're attractive and desirable, and you're going through your life, you've got this feeling of like immortality. Like, you don't really see people logistically, you know, I mean, technically, theoretically, you know, you're going to get older. You see your mother, you see your grandmother.
Right.
But you can't really put yourself in that position until you get there. And I'm just really happy that it's resonated with so many people. And I don't know that I think of it as like famous, as opposed to people feel very passionately about it, like one way or another. Like, it's not kind of like, you're like, yeah, okay. Like, I feel like they're kind of like, I hate you. I need more. You've ruined me. I've been crying for 3 days. What kind of demon are you? Or like, oh my God, that was amazing. And you see me, and thank you. But it's not kind of like I'm done, and what's next?
No.
For the most part. I mean, I'm sure there are people like that, but the people who reach out to me are usually one way or the other. It's very rare.
I think that, yes, I can't imagine having a neutral response.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think it's not, I love what you said. It's not fame. It's that people, and when I say people, women over the age of 30 feel seen. And with that, I'm going to actually jump to a question that came in, because it speaks to that. And this is from a reader, and I apologize that I don't have the reader's handle. But she says, have you been surprised by the continued love and support of the idea of you that it has garnered? It seems to really speak to the 35 to 50-year-old female demographic, which is frequently ignored in romance novels. I appreciate that you have given us a heroine who is smart, independent, flawed, and like the rest of us, just trying to figure it out as she goes.
That makes me so happy. I mean, that, like, I'm surprised that people keep finding it and feeling so strongly about it, I suppose, but I've gotten a little more used to it. It never gets old. But I'm surprised that people feel that that readers are telling me that they weren't finding characters like this. I did not read a lot of romance prior to publishing this book. Since then, I've met a lot of romance authors, and so I read more romance because I'm reading their books. But I didn't know the tropes or the formula or anything like that, and so going into this, and so I didn't. For me, I wanted this woman to explore what it is getting older and like in turning 40, and I never even thought, oh, I'll just make her, you know, fresh out of high school or college, like trying to find love. Like I wanted her to be dealing and grappling with all the things that I was going through and my friends were going through. My friends from, you know, high school, college, whatever, we're all kind of going through at the same time. And, you know, you for me, it's like, it's part write what you know, but write what's interesting to you. Like what,
Right.
like the things that I'm drawn to, the things I want to write about are things that I am wrestling with, as opposed to things like, okay, I know that, I've lived it. I could do a really great job of that because I've lived it, but I kind of I want it to feel like a conversation that I'm having in my head. Like I want to learn on this process,
Right.
during the process. And so those are the things that I write about. So it only made sense that she's gonna get old. I think I might just, like, all my heroines are just going to continuously get older. I'll be 83 and she'll be an 83-year-old heroine.
Well, we are the benefactors of you working through something, so keep it coming. But that's actually a great segue into a question I had about romance as a genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the book, I love the contrast between Celine's art world and Hayes's art world.
Right.
Celine is a gallerist in this kind of high, affluent, prestigious space, and Hayes is a pop singer where his audience predominantly are teenage girls.
Right.
And it made me think about how we weigh art differently in society, and how things that are interesting to women or by women are often lose in this calculus. And so as now somebody who is probably, whether you sought out to be a romance writer or not, as somebody who's written in this genre, how do you respond to that? I mean, how do you feel when you hear the words chick lit or women's fiction? Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts.
You know, part of me thinks as long as you're going to buy it, great.
Fair.
Put whatever label you want to on it. But I do get angry when it's something derogatory. Women's fiction doesn't bother me so much because I think of it as fiction with female protagonists.
Right.
But it's true, we don't have male fiction. And
right.
Male fiction is just considered fiction, or commercial or literary fiction, or whatever it is. Chick lit was more derogatory to me because it's chick, and then it's not even literary, it's lit. It made, I mean, not that lit's bad, but you know what I'm saying? The shortening of it made it feel, I remember when I first discovered chick lit, and I don't know when it officially became named that, but I feel like when I became aware of it, I was like that demographic. I was like early 20s, and even then it was like, well, that's cute, but then it's like, yeah, why does it have to be that? Like, why is it? And I don't like when people, I mean, I don't want to say I don't like, I feel like people put judgments on projects, on material that's produced by women in this genre, in a way that they don't on material that's produced by men. And I don't want to talk about music and boy bands because that's like that's different. But as far as like, you know, a beach read, like men never write beach reads. Why is it a beach read? Like it's just easy fluff. You can read at the beach. Like how come we don't have any books by men? How come we never call those beach reads? Or guiltless pleasure? Or like why is there guilt in discovering something you enjoy? And then there are, and it transfers also to film when you have chick flick versus, I mean, there's not, I was going to say something that rhymed with chick flick and make it a male version, but I'm going to leave that alone. We just call those movies. I mean, just call it, like, we don't, I mean, what's like The Hangover? That I think, what is that?
Is the book Hangover?
Something like The Hangover. We call it anything other than like broad comedy? Yeah. I don't think.
Exactly.
I mean, and so it's really sexist. That's a it's a long and short of it.
Exactly. And I mean, it's the idea of you is a love story, and it's also a story about self-actualization and forgiveness and grappling with self-love and identity, and also a love story. I mean, we can all relate to that, right? So shouldn't those be the books that, I mean, so I want to read one line from the book, and I think it's Soline's voice, but it's I love what she says. She says, "We have this problem in our culture. We take art that appeals to women, film, books, music, and we undervalue it. We assume it can't be high art, especially if it's not dark and tortured and wailing." I love that. That was Soline, right? Speaking.
That was Solène. Yeah, that's Solène's line.
Oh, thank you for correcting me, Solène. I've been pronouncing it wrong.
When she's talking to Hayes. She's talking to Hayes
Yes.
After the premiere of his film, and he's feeling like she's congratulating him on like how the success of the movie and the reception, and he's kind of saying, well, it's not like I'm doing like brain surgery, but she's like, don't belittle like what you've done. Like, this is huge. People love this, and just because it appeals to girls and young women and it gives them joy, it's no less important or significant or meaningful than an art that appeals to men.
Yep. Solène, also, I have to say, just side note, your French accent in the audiobook is really good. Do you speak French fluently?
Yes.
Okay.
The short story is yes. But apparently you can't really be fluent unless you're there for like 40 years, because they're like little idioms that I won't know. And
right.
But I can say pretty much anything I want to say. And
well, I mean, there was a lot of accents that actually came up. Yeah. Where's, and please forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Where's Lalit from again?
Lalit's Ethiopian.
Okay. Yeah, that accent was really well done, I thought.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I kind of going a different direction. Love, but a love between not romantic love. Right. I wanted to talk about Isabel and Solène. Okay. I found myself surprised at how impacted I was by the scenes with the mother and the daughter. And sometimes I found myself more nervous that things were not going to be okay between them than I was about it being okay with Hayes and right. Solène. And I'm a daughter, and I've been a teenage girl, and oh God, everything is so fragile when you're 14, and especially your relationship with your mother. And I just was heartbroken in some of those scenes. And so I wanted to hear from you as a mother to a daughter. What was that like writing those?
When I wrote this, my daughter's just turned 12. When I wrote this, she was 5 years old. Okay. So I wasn't writing Isabel as her, or like even a projection of her. There was a lot of me at 13 and 12 and 13 in Isabel. And there was a lot of just observing other young girls. Like, I had friends who were slightly older, who had slightly older kids, and I could see their daughters. But I remember my adolescence so well. I have an incredibly good memory for details and random things. But I've also, I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to keep a journal religiously, like from 3rd grade to like 27. There's like not a day in my life that's not accounted for. And I'd go back and read. I could read what I was thinking every day of 7th grade, every day of 8th grade, and like how like my crushes were like everything, like and how I hate my mom. Like, I can't stand her. Like, she's the worst mom ever. And the next day I'd be like, I love her so much. It's like, and like, you go back and forth.
Yeah.
You're trying to establish your independence and be someone separate from her. You're trying to push yourself away and be your own person, but you're still like, making mistakes and tripping up along the way and finding yourself and kind of like searching for your identity. And who are you outside of this other woman, outside of the family, outside whatever, even outside of your friends and your like your classmates. Like, there's so much at that age. And I knew that was like the best age for me, the best age to make the daughter for the most amount of conflict. Because if she'd been a really small, like my daughter's age, it would not have been, there would have not been no conflict there. And if she'd been older, She might have been more judgmental, but she also might have understood better. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I really found this person. He makes me really happy. Like, Daddy made me happy, and she might, if she was 18, she might have been like, okay, cool. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, there's the book. There's no book here. There's like no drama. So if I felt like 12 and 13 was like, I need you, but like, I don't want to need you because I'm my person now. But like, oh my God, I need you. And like, and I need your approval, but I don't want your approval. Like, I mean, it's just that.
Yeah, totally. Yes. And I think also what was interesting is a 14-year-old girl's obsession with a boy band, that type of obsessive, excessive love,
right,
is not unlike initial love when you are in the honeymoon stage and the excitement. Right. And so the parallel between, while it wasn't always expressed the same, was really interesting, that it's almost like Isabel and Solène were both struggling with that obsessive, excessive, lose your mind kind of love.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of at the same time. I mean.
Yeah. And coaching each other through it.
Right.
Okay. So another thread of love that I want to touch on, and then I'm going to go to some of the other guests' questions. I loved thinking about Solène's friends, and predominantly the ones that we know about and read about are Amara and Lily. Mm-hmm. And I love their different perspective on what's going on with their friend who's fallen in love with this 20-year-old singer in a boy band. And Amara is the friend that you go to who's validating and supporting you. And then Lilith's like, okay, I'm going to save you from your self-delusion, and like pushes you. And I kept thinking, if I was Solène, or if I was having a relationship with Harry Styles, who would I tell of my friends? And I honestly think the group I would tell first would be my book club. And so anyways, that is very long-winded way of me asking, very circuitous, but.
Funny. The irony, my husband says that I could never have an affair, particularly with Harry Styles, because the first person I'd have to tell would be my husband. He'd be like, you're never gonna guess what she did. And he's like, that's not gonna happen. He's like, I know you. You're gonna want to like. So I was like, you're kind of right. I guess I'm not having an affair anytime. As long as I feel that you're my best friend, I have to tell you everything. I don't really think I can get.
Yeah. What was it like? Did you bring him into the writing process, or? Oh, that was part of my question.
I was like, Harry,
I would tell my club.
My husband.
Yeah.
To a degree, yes. Okay. Yes, sure. He's super, super smart. He's super well read. And he's just very sound advice. Like, and he's an incredible person to bat things off of. And sometimes he'll just ask me questions. Like there was a lot I knew where I wanted to go with this story. I knew a lot about who these characters were, but you know, we'd play some things off of each other for sure. And then I had him read it twice, like doing 2 different versions of it in the process. And he was really much more forgiving and loving than any husband really has the right to be. Because there's a lot of me in there, and there's a decent amount of him, but there's a decent amount of that not him. And so it was kind of, I remember at one point him saying to me, like, he's so damn perfect. Why did you have to make him so perfect?
Yeah, he, I may or may not have, like, I think I told you this when we chatted. I typically am not one for celebrity gossip, but I found myself this week consumed with, like, if Harry Styles pops up in the news, I want to read about him, and I'm listening to him. And I can see how that would be interesting as part of your relationship, navigating that. And regardless of the book, I think I mean, you poured your heart and soul into this book,
Right.
and it becomes your life, your baby, your everything for so long. And I was really touched when you shared with me what the experience was when you finished the book, and how it made you feel. And I just wanted you to maybe share that with everyone.
I told you that, like, when I was getting towards the end of the book, with the last 3 months of writing, and I was on a very strict schedule with this book, because I'd spent about 6 or 7 years writing a book prior to this that I wasn't able to sell. And so when I sat down to write this book, I thought, I'm not going to lose 7 years of my life and not be able to sell this. So I'm going to get it done as quickly as possible. And I had this idea that the book was going to be about a year in length, and I was going to write it in real time. And I was never more than 3 months behind real time. So I was constantly, I was on it. But the last 3 months of the book, the last 3 months of writing, I just went into this like huge depression. It's not that I was moping around crying all the time, but anytime I sat down to write, I would cry.
Right.
And a lot of it was knowing that, I don't want to give too much away here. A lot of it was knowing like what was going to happen for my characters, but it was really me breaking up with them and knowing that I wasn't going to have this time with them for much longer. Like, yeah, it was a really, really special experience for me. Like, I was very much in love with the two of them, and I felt very close to them. And sometimes it was like close, like, oh, I know you better than I know myself. And then other times it was close that like, you're in my head and I can't get you out. Like, I'm having character thoughts for you guys constantly. It was like there was like 3 people living in here, and I felt like I was going insane at times. But then knowing that I had to break up with them was really, really painful. And I would cry, I would sit down to write, and I would just close my laptop and like curl up on my bed and cry for an hour, and then go back and write and close it and cry some more. And every night I would cry. I would go into my closet where I thought my husband couldn't hear me, and I'd curl up on the floor, and I would just like cry for Hayes. And that went on like like a year. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. Yeah, no, it was every day, but in the beginning it was every day, and then it went Wayne. But yeah, I was still just. I mean, I turned this book into my agent. I got an agent in October 2015. I started writing end of April, early May 2014. I sent it to my agent October 2015. He gave me notes, and I spent 3 months doing that. And we sold it in March of 2016, and it came out in June 2017. And I was still crying in my closet. Like, I was not over this guy and over these people and like over their love. It was really painful, which is why
I think we can relate as readers.
Which is why we segue to the next question. It's the idea that for a long time I was like, there's no way I can go back into this. Like, there's no way I can survive writing another book about these two, because I really felt like I gave it my all. I gave it everything. I was so emotionally spent and fragile, and felt like I was totally in need of therapy. I was, but I didn't get it. Anyway, I probably should have, but I didn't. I was just trying to imagine like being on some doctors, and I've had therapy before, and I totally recommend it. But it was about real people. Like, this person broke my heart, and da-da-da-da. Yeah. I couldn't imagine going in there being like, I'm in love with this guy, and he's not real. He's in my head. Like, I thought she would be like, you're insane. And then I was also afraid that she would like give me some kind of medication to get over it, and then I would lose his voice, because I hear him talking to me in a way that is very specific and very clear and very much him. And I was afraid, what if a man's antidepressants and I can't hear it? I can't access him when I need to access him. Like, is it more important to like go crazy but have this interesting? Like, I started thinking, I'm completely insane, and this is what they talk about, the writers being crazy. Like, here he is. This is it.
Super interesting. It reminds me of, like, I just thought of the Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you watched that.
Yes, yeah.
She's, you know,
like, staring at this. What if I stare at the ceiling and nothing moves?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Right.
you tapped into something and you don't want to lose it. So I get that. I mean,
Like,
I'm
I
not a
totally
writer,
felt
but
like, yeah, you don't
that
want to
makes
lose
sense.
a special thing. And I didn't want a therapist to tell me, oh, this is what you need to do.
Right.
And suddenly he's gone. Like, he's gone, and I can't reach him ever again. And I can't hear his voice, and I can't see him, and I can't keep him moving through the world.
Okay, so it sounds like the answer to our question about will there be a sequel is we're not sure yet.
So I don't want to say I'm not there yet. I feel like I've had enough distance. I could probably sit down and write for these two. I'm working on something else right now, and I want to finish that and get it out of the way before I assess and see, okay, can I tackle this book?
Yeah.
That's like the most truthful thing. But I keep them, they're very alive for me still. And whenever they speak to me, and I sound totally insane, but whenever they speak to me or I see something or hear something and it triggers something very specific, and I feel very like don't lose them. Did I lose you?
Yes, and I will share with the group you lost me because my Instagram, I was proud of myself. I put a timer on how long I was allowed to use it, and so so anyways, I told them to ignore the limit. I'm talking to Robinne Lee. Ignore the limit.
So funny. So I had this. What was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying.
Oh gosh!
Yeah. So I have an open. I have a file. You know.
Oh yes.
A laptop. I mean, a document file of just like Selene and Hayes.
Yeah. Okay, so we have some questions, and Robin, you're so generous with your time. I hope you're okay to continue.
I'm okay.
It based on the comments and the hearts I'm seeing, I think everyone else is enjoying hearing from you. Okay, this is a good question, and I'm curious. Somebody asked, although I thought the ending was fitting for the book, had you considered another ending at any point?
Without giving too much away, no. I always knew how the book was going to end. Right up to the last scene, I knew how it was going to end. I tried it, the first time I wrote it, I was kind of wishy-washy about it. I can't say too much without giving anything away. I was kind of wishy-washy about it, and I had my sister read it, my husband read it, and my sister's always been like my first beta reader. She's amazing, and she's been reading my stuff since it was like, you know, Duran Duran fan fiction, and I was basically like handing her porn, and she was like 12. I was like, read this. Like, don't tell my parents at all. But I was like, what did you think? She's like, it was good. It was a good ending. It was good. And I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's good. This is what I think is going to happen. And it was not what I wanted. And I was like, that's not what you're supposed to say. give me a couple of weeks. And then I gave her another one of her. I remember driving, and she called me. And she's like, what did you do? And I was like, okay.
Got it right this time.
Now I've got the ending. Like,
yeah.
I knew. Yeah, it was her response, and she called me like hysterical because she read the other ending and it was very close to this ending, but there was just a few things I had to tweak.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't honestly imagine a different ending, and sorry, folks, spoilers, but I knew it would end that way, but I obviously didn't know how, and you definitely wrapped it up in a very gut-wrenching but yet beautiful way. Okay, another question. I keep seeing this actually pop up in the chat too, kind of in a similar vein. Movie. Will we see Selene and Hayes on the big screen?
It's a very good question.
And you don't have to answer that, but
I don't know that I have the correct answer for that. I don't know. Hollywood is a tricky place. I would love for you to see Selene and Hayes on the big screen as Selene and Hayes. I don't know. That's all I can say.
And that's a fair answer. I think I'm conflicted. I think, and I do this with books that I so deeply am attached to and love. And I almost don't want to move. I mean, obviously I would be the first one there.
Yeah.
But there's
They
something
can
like
never,
this. Yeah.
I mean, depending on what kind of person you are, but I think most readers are like this. You can visualize things so clearly, and then you see the movie, it's like, if that's not quite what you visualized or better than you visualized, you're disappointed.
Yep.
It's really hard to do a book to screen adaptation well and keep everyone who's seen it happy, because you have these characters in your head and these scenes in your head, and
yeah, that would be tough.
And dialogue and banter, you have all that kind of in your head. And I kind of feel like I did my best, because when I wasn't sure if it was ever going to even be optioned, really, when I recorded the audiobook, I wanted to be as close to how I envisioned it when I was writing it, so that the reader or the listener could get it the way that I got it, like experience it fully the way that I experienced it without actually seeing what I was seeing. If that helps any.
It was one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. I mean, it was so evident to me that it's always special when you get to listen to a book that, you know, when the author narrates it. There's always a special element of that. But you also have just a very captivating voice, and you're able to do the accents, and then just the emotion that came through the audiobook. It was really, really powerful. What was it like doing that, though? I mean, was it hard?
It was hard, but for me, it was the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done professionally, because it really was this melding of two things that I've done for a very long time, and I've always I've gotten so much pleasure from both of them. I love them both so much, and it was really a rare opportunity to be able to like have those two things meet, and it go like perfectly. And I really felt like it was perfect. And the beauty of writing your own book and then reading it is that for me, it almost didn't feel like acting. Like I had to remember when I was seeing characters and voices, etc., and how the dialogue, like the feel and the rhythm.
The rhythm was, yes, that's a great word.
Rhythm is very specific to me, and rhythm is very specific to me when I write too, because I think being an actor, you learn like certain things are meter, like Shakespeare's meter and David Mamet is meter, and so I write out loud, so I'm constantly rereading sentences and dialogue and saying it out loud so I can hear the rhythm. So that was very important to me to capture that also when I was reading it. But if you're just reading it and listening to yourself and going and allowing yourself to take the emotional ride, I didn't really feel like I had to do that much acting. Like I didn't have to. You're there, you know, you're from those people, and you become emotional when they're becoming emotional. You're not like using, and acting a lot of times you're using outside things. Like you're supposed to be, I don't know, a mother like losing her child, let's say. And if you've never lost your child before, you go to like, you know, I've lost a cat, you know, whatever. I've lost a rabbit. Like I've lost your grandparents. Like you're always looking for something else to like dig up that emotional journey. And with this, I didn't feel like I had to do that at all. It was just all right there. It was really amazing. And it would catch me by surprise. Like, oh my God, I'm crying. Like I wasn't like, I'm crying at this. Like it was really, you know, in acting, you're like working so hard to cry. You're not working hard to cry. You don't really want to cry as an actor. You're trying to get the audience to cry. And in real life, people don't try to cry. They usually try to not let people see them cry.
Right.
Acting is a very tricky thing. But but when you're doing it and it's working and you're crying in a scene, you're like, yes, I got it. But you can't let that, you can't think it too much, because you'll pull yourself out of it and then the tears will go away. But with this, I never even had to think about it. Just like it happened. It
felt that way. It sounded that way. If you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. It's a really unique experience for all of the reasons that you just shared. I have a few more questions if you don't mind. And this one came in today, and I think it's a really good one. How has the pandemic affected your writing? Did it inspire you or leave you weighted? How important is it to you to be a Black author and Black romance author after the last year?
That's heavy. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there. Maybe I should have prefaced there's maybe 3, but.
No, I had a good, if I'm being completely honest, I had about 3 years of complete writer's block after writing this book. I feared I wouldn't be able to, I knew it was a really good story and these are really great characters, and I feared I wouldn't be able to find anything like that again organically and capture it. And then while I was trying to figure out what the next book was, this book came out and people started responding to it so strongly. And then I had the pressure of like, oh my God, I have these readers now who are expecting something of me, and they're expecting something like this or similar to this, or I have to like produce something that's going to be just as good or better. And that was an additional pressure. And then I feel like the political climate of our nation shifted enough that I couldn't focus. Like I couldn't, every day it was like checking Twitter, like what's happening,
Yeah.
what's on, and I couldn't just like distance myself and just lose myself in the art. Like I'm constantly like changing the channels. I'm looking at this news, I'm looking at that, I'm on Twitter, I'm looking at what's on CNN, what's on MSNBC, like
Right.
And I couldn't relax. And then the pandemic happened, and it was like, I mean, I couldn't take myself away from the TV. Like I couldn't.
Right. Yeah.
But sometime I think in July, my writers group started doing this. We do these Zoom writing dates, and we do it every afternoon. I'm missing it right now, but that's okay.
Oh.
We do it after. No, it's okay. There's tomorrow. We get on every afternoon, and if you can make it, you make it.
Oh,
But
I love that.
there are like 3 of us. It can be anywhere from like 3 to 6 of us who are there every day, Monday through Friday, like between 2 and 5 my time for the most part, or 3 and 6, whatever. And we just write, and it's been so helpful for me. It's allowed me to kind of get out of the craziness of the pandemic and worrying about everything that's going on in the world. And you know, I have older parents, and I mean, you know, you're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Everything like it was crazy. Like it was,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. It was a lot of weight, a lot of anxiety, and I was able to finally kind of break out of that. And so now that I do that, it's kind of like I'm in a flow. And there are days that I can't write as much as other days, but then I just kind of like write character thoughts or ideas or do some research about something. But I also, yes, I'm sorry, about being a Black author and in romance. I never thought about this book I never thought of this book as a romance. I thought of it as a love story. So I don't think I was thinking, what are other Black romance authors doing? What are they like? Who are they? I don't even know that many. I do know Kennedy Ryan, who is amazing. And we've had some incredibly wonderful conversations, and she's super supportive. A good friend of mine is named Tia Williams, and she wrote The Perfect Find. It was another kind of reverse May December relationship, and I discovered her the summer my book came out, and we just became really close very quickly. But I don't think I was really looking out for needing to befriend other Black romance writers. I follow a lot of Black writers, a lot of Asian writers, a lot of Latinx writers, like on Twitter, and because I want to know all their stories and I want to know what their challenges are, and I also love to read their material. I've always loved. I'm drawn to literary fiction, but I love, like, I guess I don't want to call it like immigrant fiction, but it's kind of that kind of fish out of water kind of thing. And, and it could be here, or it could be like India, and it's a class thing, or it could be like England, like Zadie Smith's White Teeth. Like those books appeal to me so much. Like I can't get enough of what's it like to be other and wherever you are. And I hear a lot of that, and I know all those challenges that we're all facing, and it's a struggle. And this last year with the entire Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and everything was, you know, that was also part of my just shutting down, but that was still before we started the afternoon writing, Zoom writing. And it was just, it to me, it just like was compounded with all the anxiety and stress of the pandemic anyway. And it was just kind of like, I couldn't do anything but just sit on the couch and veg. Because it was too much. It was too much.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. I know I read of people having, Black writers having more opportunities since, and I know of like Black actors and producers, directors, whatever, content makers who have had more opportunities since that whole awakening, BLM awakening. I don't, it hasn't affected me personally. Like that, not to say it hasn't affected me. I haven't benefited from it personally, but yet, but I haven't tried to put anything out into the market since then. So it's hard to know.
Right.
But I'm hoping people will be more open and welcome to hearing other stories and realizing it, and not being like, well, that's not true because I have this one Black friend and she says this is not true, therefore that's not true, or whatever it is. Like, I'm hoping that people will be more open to hearing all different kinds of voices and hearing their stories and trusting that what people are saying is true, what it is to be other wherever you are, or a minority, if you want to call it that, or just a person of color, or LGBTQ, or whatever it is to feel like an outsider, or less privileged. I'm hoping that readers will be drawn to that and be looking for that, and have serious conversations about it, and serious discussions, and it's, we're not a monolith. There's not one Black experience, right?
Right.
And there are so many stories, and there's so much out there already. Like, there's so much.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping people will look for those stories and continue to buy them and support those voices that don't get the support.
Yep.
Traditionally.
I think that's well said. And I love what you said about, you like stories where you learn about otherness and what that otherness feels. And it reminded me, one of my favorite books of all time is Americana by Chimamanda.
So I was going to tell you, because this question was on one of the things you sent me. I loved Americana. Americana was the reason I left my book club after 13 years. Because we had a heated conversation.
Oh.
And it was really emotional. It was really emotional. I was the only Black woman there. And I'd gone out of my way to bring other women of color, but a South Asian woman, a Persian woman, a Korean American woman. But I'm the only Black American woman there. And we read this book, and there was just a new person in the group who was not terribly sensitive, I thought, and very dismissive of Chimamanda's story and the way she was portraying this experience. And it was so hurtful to me, but it was even more hurtful that when I was trying to articulate how hurtful it was, I didn't want to get angry, I didn't want to scream, because we have this stereotype, the angry Black woman. So I was not going to be the angry Black woman, especially if I'm the only woman of color there.
Right.
There. But I was like, they're not going to see me cry. I'm not going to get emotional. But no one was standing up for me, or no one was saying, oh, I understand, or oh, I get that, or I read that. And I just kind of felt like I'm tired of teaching people and always being the voice. Like, I kind of felt like, you're a 40-year-old woman, you're smart women, like, and you read books, and the beauty of reading books is that we learn to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. Like, that is the entire reason for reading, is to go on these journeys and take experiences that you might not have. And yet so many of them they were so resistant. Not even so many. I feel like it was one or two were so resistant, and the others kind of just like let it go and let things be said that I didn't feel comfortable with. So I left that book club, and I've been there since, like, we started in 2003. So 2003 to 2014, 11 years.
Wow.
A lot of great things. And I still am very good friends with some of the women in that group, and they're super smart and well-read. But that to me, like, really broke my heart, and I haven't replaced it since. That said, I have my writing group, and we read each other's material. And because it's not just fiction, we're not all writing the same kind of stuff. Some of us are screenwriters, some are writing like medical essays, some are writing musicals, some are writing, television pilots, whatever. So I'm constantly reading different women's projects and perspectives and analyzing them in that group and discussing them with that group. And they're much more across the board, sensitive. They're group, I guess, sensitive to others.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of fed me. Like that's what all I've needed, really.
It, you know, whether it's a book club, a cooking club, a film club, I mean, that's
Right.
that space
Yeah.
that you can
And
go.
I need to be with other women too. Like I
Yeah.
like having that camaraderie with other women, and we are a really tight unit, and they are like my support system. So I feel like they came into my world just as a book club was kind of moving out, and so that.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
also
I think
wine together.
yes, that's important.
It all comes down to wine. That was one of the beauties of my book club too, is that we used to, you know, each week or month, sorry, that we'd meet, the culinary choice would be like a theme of the book, you know.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
well,
You know, it's fun. We talk a lot about keeping book clubs together. We don't often talk about book club breakup stories, but I'm sure people can relate. I think as you grow up and go through different life stages, your reading tastes change, or the way you're relating to people changes, or you have a moment like you did where you realize, you know, this group, they're not necessarily who I want to grow with, you know. So I think that happens, and I'm glad you shared that, because I imagine others.
It was really painful. It was like a breakup of sorts.
Yeah,
it was really painful.
It's tough.
I don't know about it. I'm gonna get emotional. I'm not gonna I don't like talking about it because it was really, but it was over Americano, which I thought was an incredible book.
Oh gosh, it is so incredible, and it's coming to the screen, which I'm nervous about.
Yes, is it Lupita who's doing it? I mean,
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. But yeah. I'm nervous because it is such a special book to me. But I'm sure it'll be wonderful. Well, I feel horribly that we're taking you away from your writers club.
It's okay.
But this has been, there's been so many questions that have popped up in the chat, but mostly just more adoration for you and this book and what you've given us. And I just thank you. Not only for writing this story, but for sharing this evening with us. It's really a treat to get to talk to the authors, and I mean, this was published in 2017, so it's you know, it's been a while, and so I appreciate you kind of rejoining this conversation and opening up to us. It's been really fun.
Well, thank you. This is a pleasure. This is really, really lovely. You had great questions. This is a fun way to spend an afternoon.
Well, good. And for everyone, we'll have the recorded video. So if you know of a Idea of You fan who couldn't make it tonight, you can point them in the direction of this video. And we also have a discussion guide available on our site for the Idea of You with some other questions that could be great for your book club. But yeah, if you haven't listened to this book, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It was a really special experience. Well, I think as I'm seeing in the chat, lots of love and thank you, and I'll just echo that. So thank you, Robin, and hope to chat with you soon.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for having me. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Right. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.